Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to ATACS episode number 29. We are recording this on January 14th, 2018. I am your host, Paul from Atlanta, and we have a full table today. We have Mr. Nate from Wendell. Hello, Nate.
I'm here.
How you doing?
It's kind of cold in here, but other than that, good.
You should turn the heat up. That can fix that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I will take your advice.
All right. Also, we have Mr. Will from Greenville, North Carolina. Hello, Will.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Also cold, but the heat is turned up, so it's getting better.
Cool.
So,
I just had Logan's, and it was too much food.
Excellent. So I'm glad to hear that you're not going to be moving anywhere for the near future for the rest of the podcast.
Yeah, I'm not going to be hungry for probably to the duration of our podcast, plus a couple hours.
Man,
still going to be digesting.
All right. While you're busy digesting, we have Mr. Flex from Raleigh, North Carolina. Hello, Flex.
It's 2018.
It is.
We
That's
made it.
Crazy. Arguably, but yes, we are here. It is 2018.
I think I'm still alive somehow.
I'm pretty sure you are. I mean, you are talking on a podcast. You generally need to be allowed to do that.
Do I?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
That's how that works. Also, we have Miss Stephanie from Atlanta. Hello, Stephanie.
Hi there.
How are you?
Half alive. I just finished my first week of university semester college stuff.
Yeah. Welcome back to video games. That's more fun and brighter than university stuff.
It's a little more interesting than geology. But
Dr. Rock. That's what they call you.
yeah.
No one calls you that. And last but not least,
If I can
No,
start.
it's not. No, I've had enough geology in my life.
I'm pretty big on nicknames.
No.
I can confirm.
yeah, that's true. And last but not least, we have Mr. Ryan from New York, New York. Ryan, are you still alive, or are you frozen to your computer?
I am alive. Some might say the opposite of least.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that all of you could join us on I think this is our first ATACS episode of 2018.
Indeed.
So we are going to... Actually, we're going to go down our Secret Santa list, which is the thing that we did, I guess it was about 6 weeks ago now, where we got each other games, and, some of them were really good, some of them not so much. I got Mr. Nate Saints Row 4. So I was more leaning on the fun stuff there. So, Nate, what did you think of Saints Row? Was it an enjoyable experience for you?
That is a video game.
It is.
Yeah. That game it has some fun stuff. It is absolutely ridiculous, as you might expect from the Saints Row franchise.
Was it 3 or 4? I'm sorry.
4.
This is 4.
4. Okay.
This
And
is
you
the
had
one.
played 3 before, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I've played. I'm pretty sure I played the first Saints Row at some point in my lifetime. Not probably all the way through, but
It's all a blur.
I don't think it was very good.
touched it at some point.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I did play 3 when that one came out and got so much praise because they kind of just went all out with the crazy in that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like
Yeah.
3 is where they carved out their niche as something different from GTA.
Yeah,
Was
at
that
least
the
a
game where
lot
they
more.
added the dildo bat, or was the dildo
Yeah,
bat?
well,
part
it might have
of the
been there before
franchise?
that, but
That might have been in 2.
Yeah.
I've played all of them but 1, actually.
okay.
Oh.
But yeah, this one's sort of the follow-up to 3, which is, quote unquote, the crazy one.
Oh, it's
and
so good.
and they just try to out crazy themselves, which ends
Was
up with
Burt
them being
Reynolds
like,
in
hey,
4?
I think that was 3.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
Keith David was
Keith David's in all of them, I think.
Okay.
Oh, he is?
I think so.
Hulk Hogan was in 3. I know that.
Did they bring back the Nolan North voice option?
Yeah. And I had forgotten about that, but I think it is in the other ones too.
It was in 3 because that's the one I played.
Yeah, so I made a lady president because your character in this game is the president.
Voiced by Nolan North.
And then got to the voice option. It's male 1, 2, and 3, female 1, 2, and 3, and Nolan North. are the
Right.
7 voice options.
I like that they don't gender Nolan North.
Yeah, he's just Nolan North. So I picked that one, of course.
Yeah,
Of course.
as you would.
So that was a fun time. Yeah, everything about the game just tries to out-ridiculous itself. So, like I said, you start out as the president. Well, actually, it starts out with what's basically a parody of like a Call of Duty level. So it's like a third person behind. It's third person, which I guess is not Call of Duty, but it's a very straightforward like shooter level where you and a squad of people are trying to infiltrate this terrorist organization to kill their leader, and you do the thing where like you put a breach charge on the door and then they blow it open and time slows down and you pop your head through and headshot everybody. And then it just escalates immediately and you're riding a nuke through the air and disarming it and then land in the White House after jumping off of the nuke and like land in the Oval Office chair. It's silly.
And then you're the president.
And then you're the president.
Yeah. And you have superpowers or something?
Yeah, and then aliens attack. So
Uh-huh.
that happens. That's right after I signed the bill to end world hunger.
Nice.
Okay.
I think
By
I cured
feeding
cancer
everyone
instead.
Yeah, you're just walking down the hall and they're like, "Hey, we've got these 2 bills. You can cure cancer or end world hunger. Which one do you want?" And then it doesn't matter. You can pick.
Another
And-
commentary on pointless choices.
yeah. So that's one thing that struck me about this game is a lot of it feels like not even thinly veiled commentary on other video game tropes.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Which always was kind of funny. And then the aliens attack, and you end up in a simulated version of the city, and it's basically the Matrix. And then you get superpowers because you're in the Matrix,
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
do you, dare I ask, do you know Kung Fu?
Yeah, pretty much. There's a ton of Matrix references.
I'm
in there.
sure.
So that's the basic setup. It's an open world game with a lot of stuff to do. Most of it is very generic open world side activities. I also had the realization like 5 hours in that the game is actually just a platformer. Like,
Right.
it's actually
Yeah.
more like a 3D platformer, like in the traditional sense, than it is like an open world crime game. Because you get your superpowers to like run super fast and jump super high, and then it ends up being like the city is this 3D platforming level, and you're just like bouncing around it, collecting things.
Any like Infamous vibes with that stuff?
Yeah, if Infamous controlled badly.
Great.
A little bit though, yeah. It is a goofy, completely off the rails thing. I don't know that any like one piece of it is super like well executed, but it made me chuckle here.
So
and
tell
there.
me about the controls.
I mean, it's basically what you would expect. You've got like a sprint, and when you level that up, you're basically just like plowing through things, and like enemies and vehicles will just get knocked out of your way. You can press and hold the jump button to jump higher. You get an air dash at some point by getting upgrades, so you can air dash.
I guess I was wondering more about the quality of the controls.
Well, I think all of the superpowers that give you movement options just like there's no. I'm trying to think of exactly what my problem with it was. It's constantly asking you to maneuver around this city and like find very small points, but you're just moving at incredible speeds and heights the whole time.
Right.
So it's like, oh, I want to jump up onto this 1-story building, but I either jump like a normal person or I go like 10 miles in the air. And those are my options.
Yeah,
So jumping 2 stories is hard.
Yeah.
I remember having that problem a little bit whenever I was playing through the game, where it's like, all right, if I need to go really high, I'm fine. If I need to go like right here above the ground, I'm fine. Halfway up, screwed.
Right.
You don't have that kind of fine control.
Yeah,
But is
and
that really
some
a
of
game
the
that you need to finesse?
No. I mean, like for all the issues that I think that the game has with the controls, at least when I was playing it, I was never really frustrated because it was just like you just have to try it again, and you'll get it eventually.
Well, for whatever frustrations you had with the controls, the game made up for in outfits that you can buy.
I actually went through the whole game without buying any clothes.
What? Are you kidding me?
I decked out my guy from the start. I was good.
I went through the game making my character dress up as different characters from My Little Pony.
Yeah, there you go.
Pretty great.
There you go.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of like goofy fun to be had with that. So I'm not surprised that the costume changes are funny. Yeah, I mean, like Paul was saying, it didn't really frustrate me having like all these controls because it doesn't really matter. They never really have high stakes in that game. But
so a serious question. When I went through the game, I felt compelled to 100% it. Like, I really enjoyed the mini games. Did you go do any of the side quest stuff?
no, I didn't. It seemed like there was just a lot of that stuff.
Did you not vehicle surf?
You didn't go half the town with a tank?
No, I mean, like they introduce a lot of what those side activities are through the main story. Like you'll do it once and then they're like, okay, now these are all unlocked. They're all over the city. And I didn't really, like I would do the one that they require you to do. And then I was kind of like, okay, I see what that is. And I never really felt the need to go do those. I did some of the like side quests that are like named story things, but I didn't do all of them.
Okay.
What character did you find yourself like connected to the most? Like, who were you most excited to do side quests with?
I don't know. Like the game's characters are really weird, and it's also weird how like irreverent that game is towards the series history. Like all of the characters that come back from previous games, and I'm kind of like, I think I remember this person, but I don't really remember this person. And they like lean really heavily on the backstories and stuff in like a way that I was sort of surprised by for a game that's so like silly and out there.
Yeah, it was way too long ago, but I remember being really attached to like the emo like hacker guy. Like I liked him a lot.
Yeah, he's real silly, and everybody hates him.
I think the things I remember about it is I think I was playing Saints Row 2. And I used to do this type of stuff in GTA all the time. Like I'd get in the back of like a pickup, like in GTA 3, I'd get in the back of a pickup truck and like see how long I could like stay back there while the car drove around. Mm-hmm. And I remember doing the same thing in Saints Row 2, and then realizing as soon as I started it that it was actually a mini game. Like I had actually entered into a mini game, and I remember thinking like, wow, how magical, you know?
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
And I remember there was actually some strategies for some of these side missions. Like one thing, if you ever did any of the Mayhem side missions, the idea was to like, you know, destroy as many objects as you can in a certain period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And as you destroy more and more in smaller periods of time, then you get a multiplier. And then each subsequent thing like gives you more money in destruction. Mm-hmm. And so I remembered like the funny thing is if anyone ever needs a hint to do well on these is go after fences because fences are like a lot of individual objects. So if you start shooting rockets at fences, then like, you know, so the funny thing was it was like me and my friend Colin would drive around looking for fences when that game was on, and he's like, I found a fence. I'm like, oh yeah, let me get over there.
Gotta get that fence.
Take the fence down, you know. But that's just some
funny
things I remember about the my Saints Row experiences.
Yeah, and this one just turns everything way up. So like they still have those mayhem activities where your goal is to destroy things, but like you have so many different tools. Right. Like it's kind of absurd. Like you could just like once you upgrade the super sprint enough, it will like create a little vortex around you as you're running at full speed, and it will just like pull objects up around you and like throw them around the environment. So you can basically just run down the streets and things are flying everywhere and blowing up. It's really silly.
Do you think that maybe you would have enjoyed it more if you had a co-op partner? Because I've never played a Saints Row.
Oh, probably, yeah. I mean, I think co-op generally makes games a little bit more fun and even when they're just kind of, especially when they're like just ridiculously like explosive or just like fast-paced action, that kind of stuff. Like I think that does help sometimes. But I mean, I didn't not enjoy it. I had, you know, occasional gripes about the controls, but then the other thing is like late game. I started to get a little bored every time they just started throwing a bunch of enemies at me, because I had the one power that just like blew everything up. And so it was just like, okay, here's a group of enemies, boom, you're all dead. Now wait for the next one. Do it again.
Yeah. Was there like an upgrade tree to choose those powers, or?
Yeah. So there's all the powers you upgrade by finding orbs in the city. So, there's just like these little light balls floating around the city, and there's tons of them. And so as you collect them, you can use those to upgrade each individual power. So I definitely spent
to a certain Microsoft.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely spent like probably an hour when I first got like super speed and super jump, just running around the city collecting dozens of those orbs.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!
Yay!
All right, so I guess I'll take over here and we'll dive into my gift for Flex over there. I gave him his favorite game of 2017, SPACEPLAN.
Mm-hmm. There was a plan for space, which involved a giant button.
And
You click a
zucchini,
lot.
right? What is zucchini?
Potatoes.
Squash.
You make potatoes.
Pumpkin.
Make potatoes.
Yeah,
So
you played it on Steam, right?
yes.
Okay.
So when you gifted this to me, you said, so this is a clicker.
Yep.
And you said it was the best of the clickers.
I thought it was a good clicker that I actually enjoyed. Yeah.
All right. You stand by that statement that it's one of the better clickers. Then I think all clickers are terrible.
No! I just started playing this game and I'm addicted. It's so good.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, as someone who's played a lot of clickers, this one is just about the top of the top. So if you didn't like it,
Yep.
Well,
You got a pro clicker here.
I know what I'm going to do with clickers going forward.
Play all of them?
Yeah,
play
exactly.
you can
I
play all of them
assume-
at the
so-
same time.
Having played it, I assume that mostly
You
just comes
could.
from like a production value standpoint.
Yeah, I liked
my
it
guess.
because it is more well produced than your average clicker, and it has an ending and like writing to it, which
Okay.
most of them don't.
Yeah. That was my assumption, is because, it's very, like, it is well produced and, like, there is writing to it. But at the end of the day, you're literally just clicking a button. And that's all you do. And
Click that button.
And I did that. I clicked that button for hours.
But you have to time your clicks at the end so your potatoes can get around,
that was actually the worst part.
So the one innovative part of the clicker is the one that you
see-
like the most.
Because, the rest of the game, what I did, after about 20 minutes when I realized what was going on, I said, okay, I'm going to put this into windowed mode on one monitor, and I'm going to go play a different game on my other monitor.
Totally.
And then I will occasionally switch over when I have enough whatever watts or whatever it was to buy something to make the clicking go faster on its own. And then I'll go back to playing. It was Dream Daddy. I was playing on the other monitor, so I literally played these two games at the same time, which was a real. That was a day, let's say. And you just click, and then you get done clicking, and that was that. And I feel like I did not change as a person playing that game, for better or for worse. It just happened.
It just happened.
And that was that.
Oh,
I don't know
God.
that I took anything away from it, one way or the other. I mean, I'm being kind of jokey, but like, I mean, it's exactly what you think a clicker is. Which is
You're not
like
wrong.
click on a button.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I kind of don't know what else to say about it, because
It is what it is, but like I feel like there was some good like silly humor in there, and you're like going through different dimensions at the end, and everything's weird. Like there was some interesting stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, the ending was psychedelic, and they were, though I did get really bummed out when they hit that point where you reset, like halfway through, and like there were
Spoilers.
quote unquote story reasons for this to happen. Spoilers. but you basically
You're
reset
Spoiling
everything.
SpacePlan.
Yeah, sorry for the space plan spoilers here.
So what we've learned is that Flex hates potato tactics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, sure. Just go ahead and extrapolate how I hate, all sorts of things from this.
You hate potatoes and French fries.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Space.
No, I'm joking.
But yeah, that was actually a real bummer moment because like I had gotten the factory to where it could run itself and I really wouldn't have to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
So I was like at the point where I didn't have to manually play the game and then it reset and I'm like, oh, I have to go click this button now. And I got real sad for a minute.
I mean, that is profoundly telling. That you were like, oh man, I can finally not play this game anymore.
Yeah. Well, and that's why having to aim the clicks at the end, like time the clicks, was such a bummer because then I had to act. That was the point where I had to play the game the most.
You had to pay attention.
Yeah. I mean it is what it is. You click a button, like that's what the game is. Like
that is how every clicker works. You have to click this button at the start, and it sucks. And then you get the upgrades, and then you don't have to click it anymore, and the numbers just keep going up.
It's awesome.
Here's the catch. I can just click without a game, and I can also stop clicking without a game. I can just
but do numbers go up when you do it?
Who cares? Who needs the numbers?
That's
like
all you
in a
need.
video game.
I can go, look, I'm going to do this right now. All right, I'm in Windows 10. I'm typing calculator. I'm typing 1 plus 1, and then equals. And now I'm just clicking the equals button, and this number's going up. I'm at 27 right now. It's just going, man.
But that game's got no rules. That game's got no boundaries.
Who needs them?
There's no soundtrack. Oh, come on. At least the soundtrack was really good.
Well,
for
I
that
don't
game.
know. I think Flex could put together a pretty solid soundtrack. I'm thinking.
You hear this clicking?
This is pretty great,
man.
You just turned Windows 10 into a game.
Dude, I didn't even know that they shipped a clicker with Windows 10. This is awesome.
I just made my own game. Look at that.
But where's the achievements? I don't see any achievements.
Look, Nintendo doesn't
Stay
need
tuned,
them.
everyone. Game innovations.
Oh, man. All right.
Well, I'm glad I could finally expose you to the world of clickers. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I'm never playing another clicker game. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Such seasonal joy.
All right, Flex. Who did you end up buying for?
Yep. The game I bought was for Steph, and I got Steph Recettear, an item shop sale.
Yeah, I loved it. It was a lot of fun. So in Recettear, you play as is just her name Recet, or is it like Receipt or something like French or?
Oh gosh, it's been so long since I played it.
Right, I'm just gonna call her Recet, and if that's wrong, then that's okay. But you basically wake up and you get informed that your father has left behind an incredible amount of debt, and he's dead, and you get to pay it all back. And the other character in the game is a fairy named Tear, and she just harasses you the whole game, and she's kind of just a giant asshole. I kind of hated her, like, a lot. So this fairy is like, hey, your dad's dead, you get to pay all of his debt back. You don't get to grieve over your dad being dead. I need you to open up a store and pay me back. And that was a very quick way into the game.
Yeah.
But I really thought that Recet's her design is so adorable. Like, for being kind of like JRPG, like, was really impressed by the amount of I guess care that went into her character design. And then so the
Yeah.
And you get to hear her yell Japanese greetings like every 30 seconds.
Yeah. Okay, so some of the voice stuff really bugged me in the game.
Yeah, I couldn't remember
it.
how much voice stuff there was.
When I started my first Japanese class, I could remember half the greetings because I played Recettear.
Well, I think for me it was mostly like if I didn't make a sale,
and I'm not joking.
she just like She just made like the saddest noises, and like someone wouldn't buy something for the stupidest reason, which I'll get into, and then she'll be like, "I guess I'm a failure at life," and I'm like, "You're not. You're not a failure because you couldn't like sell the bubble gum. Like it's okay." So
It's very, very positive, you know.
oh my gosh.
So did you enjoy like all the management aspect of running the shop and
Oh yeah,
going to
definitely.
the dungeons to get more supplies? I forget all the exact details, but
Yeah, so basically the gameplay comes through as like you buy an item from one merchant or one group of people, and then you sell it in your own store. And you have to, price it up so you make a profit. And sometimes there's like a more of a demand for sweets, so they'll sell higher. And sometimes like metal will lose its value, so your sword isn't worth as much. And every week you have to pay back a little bit of your father's debt to this damn fairy bitch. And how much you owe dramatically changes. Like the first week you only owe like 3,000 money dollars, and it's pretty easy to hit. But then the next week you owe 10,000, and then the next week you owe 100,000.
Did you? Because the game goes for what, like a month or something?
Yeah, the actual game only lasts a month.
Yeah,
but they do have. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I didn't hit the final target. I was curious if you did.
Yeah, I got it, and
Okay.
not only that, I became obsessive about it because the game does factor in that maybe you're not going to make these deadlines. So when that happens, it resets back to day one.
Yep.
Your character wakes up and she's like, "Oh, it was all a bad dream," and then the awful fairy lady shows up, and you start back from day one.
And then you gotta start clicking again.
Yeah.
But you do get to keep like your items, so it's much easier to reach that goal. But I could not handle that. I couldn't handle it, man. So I would just go back like 2 days before the debt, and I would just obsess over trying to make it every time.
Yeah. I didn't hit I hit all the goals until the very last one, and then it reset me, and I was like, you know what? I'm good.
Yeah, I couldn't do it, man.
And I think I was in a state where like just rolling back a few days, if I had a save, I don't even remember how that worked. I wasn't in a good enough spot to make it. So I was like, that was good. Like I could run through the whole month again, but I had other games to play at the time.
No, I think like on the game it says I've played like 5 hours, but if you look at my Steam account, I think it's played like 11. And that's just because I'm replaying 2 days every time, because I'm like, I'm not going to sell you that cherry for less than 1,000. I'm not going to do it. So, I just got like really angry at some of the people that would come in to buy stuff, because there's this one little pigtailed heathen that comes in, and she shows up and she wants to buy like a $10 million broadsword. And then you're like, okay, and you sell it to her at a very fair price. And she's like, but my allowance won't allow it. And then she gets mad and leaves. And then like your poor protagonist is like, I'm a failure at life. I should kill myself. You're like, no. So, but the part of the game I really loved was it's like a dungeon crawler too. So you get to hire these adventurers, and you get to equip them with stuff from your store, and you get to search for loot with them. They level up, and it's a really simple combat, but there's something really satisfying about it. And I didn't feel like for that first month of the gameplay that I was able to really explore the dungeon the way I wanted to. But after you beat the game, quote unquote, you can do a lot of like more stuff. You can get better items, you can go through more dungeons, you can talk to more characters without that deadline. I haven't done that yet, but I think I'm going to enjoy the game a lot more like at the later half.
Yeah. So do you think you're going to keep going with it?
Oh yeah, I definitely think I will, because the prospects of having my store be like twice as big with like 4 times as much merchandise, and then I won't care about making the old lady cry because I won't give her food.
Yeah, I remember it seeming like there could be a whole lot you could keep ramping up with. You can keep making the numbers get bigger.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a clicker. No, I really did enjoy it. This is right up my alley. I thought unique, and besides like just really hating the second main character.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. It's funny because when we first, like before we drew the names, when we first just mentioned the idea, I was like, oh, if I get Steph, Recettear I think would be a really good pig. And then I drew you, and I like thought about a good half dozen or more other games, and just came back around to this. So I'm glad you liked it.
Oh yeah, it was a good time. So I guess I will throw it to Will. And funny enough, I completely forgot the name of the game I got you, even though I think I spent like 5 hours researching games to get you.
Well, I will hop in and save you, Santa Claus.
Thank you.
You got me Stories Untold.
That was it. I'm smart.
And that was a pretty cool little thing. So it's sort of a adventure game, I suppose, sort of like a series of I don't know if you call them scenes, I guess, like a series of scenes, and in each one typically you interact mostly with like a keyboard. So it's kind of like a text-based adventure game. And it's funny because now I kind of have a little bit of a super sensitivity when it comes to some of these adventure titles, just because I think I just don't have enough patience sometimes. And so I'm very quick to say, well, like, how was I supposed to know that was what I was supposed to write in? So there were a couple of those instances where, there was one time where I was like supposed to go in a kitchen, and you can use a look around command, and typically that'll kind of clue you into certain things you can do. And it never mentioned the kitchen. And I was like, well, crap. And then so I think I looked it up online. It was like, you need to go to the kitchen. I was like, oh, okay. And so I was like, I can go to the kitchen. And
I mean, have you never watched a Scooby-Doo episode? That's where you always go.
There was there's another scene where you're in like this little escape pod off of a ship, and you're supposed to like access the computer. And at least when I landed, I had no idea that there was a computer in my ship. So that was something that was kind of rough. And there was one other time where I was like, I had to read like a microfiche to come up with these commands. And I couldn't actually read it. I don't know if it was my eyes being bad or the resolution of the game, but I couldn't read. So I had to end up looking up kind of what I was supposed to be seeing. So those are frustrating. And that's kind of like a universal thing for me with adventure games. I get a little frustrated when I feel like it's not particularly intuitive. But in terms of the story that the game tells, each of these scenes is really, really is kind of compelling on its own. There's one where you're in a house, kind of up in an attic, kind of controlling someone. There's one where you feel like you're helping these scientists. There's one that takes place where you're actually in a snow station, and you're trying to send out these codes so that people can know to evacuate, it seems like. So you're almost like at some sort of weather station at the top of a mountain. And all of these scenes are individually interesting and compelling of themselves. And then in kind of the final act in the game, you kind of learn that these are all connected in a way that, and I'm not being hyperbolic here, is absolutely brilliant. So that was a super cool thing. And so I think in some ways, you kind of, outside of that gameplay, you really kind of nailed me in terms of just, being able to kind of read into what's going on in the game, the way that the gameplay meshes. And there's an argument to be made, and I think I say this in my Steam review, that perhaps the style of gameplay actually fits in with the overarching narrative. Now that doesn't make it more fun, but it definitely, makes it make sense,
right.
So I had I really kind of appreciate it. I do think that, and I think I said this, I think it could have been just as effective if perhaps you had like multiple choices or something. Like maybe just tell me which one, and then I'll like pick from that. That way I don't have to like rack my brain trying to figure out where you want me to go or what you want me to do.
So was it various stories that end up leading up to one big narrative, or?
Yeah. In a sense, each one is sort of self-contained, but then you kind of learn that they are all kind of related. And I saw that Nate added this to his wish list, so I don't want to spoil it any more than that because it's pretty brilliant.
Yeah, but, I got it in that last Steam sale. I'm looking forward to trying it out.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, the way it comes together is pretty brilliant. But yeah, like that, it does have some adventure game growing pains.
Yeah.
I guess you could call it.
Well, like,
But yeah.
woof, I'm really glad that you liked it, because I was really stressing out trying to find something that I thought that you would like, and I was like, I either need to go completely stupid, or
I still think you should have gone with Danganronpa.
Yep.
yeah, maybe
Well,
next year.
Well, Steph, I am glad that you didn't. I don't know if anyone has any questions about Stories Untold. If not, I can turn it over, or if so, I can attempt to answer them.
I don't think I have anything.
All right. So I purchased a game entitled Dungeons 3 for Paulus Victor.
Oh, the third dungeon.
The third
Yes.
Dungeons.
And I would like to now hear some thoughts, and I am holding my breath.
Well, you can breathe. That game is it's not great. It's not great.
I can hear his heart crashing from here.
So the thing is like, I feel like
Tell me the thing.
The game system itself is okay in terms of like they marry this RTS with this sort of like, you know, resource simulator thing, which that all does kind of jive together decently well. But I feel like it's got this problem where it doesn't do either thing super duper well.
Right.
The RTS portion isn't as tight and is not as able to be controlled as something like a Warcraft 3 or something like that. And you know, you pair that with the, you know, building out your evil villain's lair, and it also feels a little too simplified there. But they do make you like pop back and forth between your base view and the overworld. And I found that just to be a little bit too difficult to manage when I would have my, you know, like my goon squad out on the overworld map achieving like RTS style objectives, but then all of a sudden a hero would pop into my dungeon, and maybe my traps would get all of them but one. And then there's like one guy left wailing on, you know, like my dungeon stone, which if they break that, it's game over. So I have to like stop what I'm doing. I have to pull some guys back or pull all my guys back depending on like where it is. And that was just kind of like, there's too much going on.
I can see that. I sometimes feel that way when I'm playing RTSs, and like I try to expand my base. Like, and then like you go, like someone starts whacking on your expansion, and then you bring part of your army out there, and then somebody goes in the back of your base. And you're like,
yeah, no. Yeah. So, but you know, like honestly, that part is you know not the thing that kind of turned me off from the game. The thing that turned me off from the game was I was playing through the campaign, and the humor and the narration was just childish in a way to where it's like I was just skipping entire cutscenes because I couldn't handle the dialogue and I couldn't handle like the story, because it was intentionally like it was very fourth wall breaking, but not in a way that was clever. There's a whole lot of like references and allusions and straight ripoffs from like other, you know, games in that genre. You know, there's like 100 Lord of the Ring references. But it's done in a way that almost feels like it's written for like a 9-year-old. So at some point you're just like the narrator and the main character are having banter back and forth during a mission, and it's supposed to come off as clever, but it's just kind of not. So the campaign is definitely not a fun piece for that game, but whenever you get in and you play just like a free play mode, like that's okay. Like that's definitely better. So it's not all bad, but that campaign is definitely not.
It does
really
kind of sound
through.
like Nate and I are in the running for worst Secret Santa gift. That's kind of what I'm feeling.
Yeah, I'm still planning on going back because I haven't finished out the campaign yet. I am still planning on going back and putting a little more time into it. So it hasn't turned me off to the point where it's like I'm never going to play it again. But I was expecting something a little more mature in terms of like the humor, and I guess a little more just a little more complex. And instead it's like, look, guys, we got Gollum, but we gave him 3 L's, so it's not Gollum. Isn't this funny? And it's like, no, that's not funny. That's not funny. That's just Gollum.
I think, and it's just to clarify, it's not a thing that I've played. But I thought kind of, you play a lot of games that I don't really know anything about, like the Banished style games, and there was another kind of like Stardew Valley, these kind of sort of sim management type of situations.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to kind of go in that direction, but I just swung and missed.
Well, I don't like, I think maybe this is also a case of like I'm being a little harsher on the game than what the general consensus was for it. So I think maybe it's just a little bit of like me, and not necessarily that the game is as bad as I'm making it out to be.
It's just that Paul's a jerk. Don't worry about it.
It's fine. I'm still going to go back and I'm still going to put some more time into it, but it's not something that, like, I think that the actual gameplay is better than the story, and it's one of the few times where I've had a story just almost completely turn me off from a game.
Gotcha.
So,
well, thanks for giving it a go anyway, bruh.
Being a trooper.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think probably what we're going to do at this point is we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about all the video games that we've been playing for the past month or so. So stay tuned, and we'll be back right after this. And ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Adults Talking About Cool Stuff, episode number 29. We're going to talk about video games that we have been playing. Yeah, it's been winter break for a whole bunch of us, vacation time, things like that. There have been video games played. Yeah. So actually, Ryan, let's start with you. You've been playing stuff that you want to talk about. So what you been having going on?
Yeah. Well, I have played a lot of games, like I think many of us have. Before I jump into my games, I did want to kind of shout out to Awesome Games Done Quick, which was this past week, ended this morning at like 3:30 a.m., I think.
Yeah.
But I had a chance to catch, this is one of the first ones I've had a chance to watch live, and they just have tons and tons of great runs. You have like the crowd singing along with like Sonic Adventure 2, and you have like all these them breaking all these scripted fights in Final Fantasy IV. You have the Awful Games block. Like, they just do tons and tons of cool runs, and all in support of charity.
Yeah, and I think they raised $2.2 million. I can't find the number now, but it was quite a bit.
I think I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, it was like 1.9 whenever I tuned out at like midnight last night.
Yeah, I think they finished just north of 2. Yeah, $2,262,098.19. So yeah, that's quite.
I definitely recommend checking out some of those runs if you get the chance. They usually put them on YouTube. But anyway, so games, I have played a lot of them. I will go ahead and list them out. I actually want to talk about kind of 2 groups of games. So since our Game of the Year podcast, I have played and either finished or given up on The Wonderful 101, Super Mario 3D World, Phantom Dust, Galak-Z, Etherlords 2, and Outland, not counting multiplayer games. Okay. And what I kind of wanted to do is kind of talk about 2 of these games in groups, or a few of these games in sort of groups. So The Wonderful 101 and Galak-Z are both games that I stopped playing after about 3 or 4 hours. And for me, this sort of applies to Outland as well, but maybe not as much. But these were games that I felt like, I guess, it's hard to sum it up without sounding a little reductive, but to me, they kind of fell flat. It came off as maybe a little bland. Just didn't quite have like the right kind of feel. And I was kind of chewing on it and thinking about it, and it's hard to define, but I feel like, especially in these genres which these games occupy, so like the Wonderful 101 is sort of like a 3D beat 'em up. Galak-Z is a twin stick shooter, especially for those genres in, kind of like 2017, 2018, those games, the games in those genres really need to have like a tight action loop. Like they just need to be like a joy to play by this point, or have some really effective hook that can kind of smooth over, like if they don't have like top tier gameplay, we're kind of, I guess, post Xbox Live Arcade, and there have just been so many good iterations of those types of games.
Though, to clarify, these games are a few years old.
Yeah. I mean, Galak-Z is what, 2013? 14?
That was 2015. Wonderful 101 was 2013.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, those aren't like super, super new, but just playing them now and wondering why, because these are games that I feel like would fit into kind of my cup of tea. But then when I was playing Galak-Z, it was like, well, there's kind of a story, but it's not really that great. Like, the shooting doesn't feel bad, but like there's no screen shake. Like there's, your progression resets. Like there's just no hook. Like there's no, it was really tough to chew on and to quantify. But to me, like, if you think about games like Luftrausers, and just like a range of, Castle Crashers in the beat 'em up genre, or probably like some of the other like DMC or whatever, probably just, I'm not as familiar with 3D beat 'em ups, but just games with those in those action genres, something about it, they just lost me. They just did not grab me.
Well, in Wonderful 101's case, it's because that game's just kind of bad.
Yeah, the game was super uneven from pretty much any standpoint you take. So, like, I'm not surprised that you bounced off of that one.
Yeah, I had a really rough go with Wonderful 101.
Galak-Z, I feel like, is like flashy and cool, and I like the controls of it, but I also didn't like the roguelike nature of it.
Yeah, there's something about the progression being roguelike.
Yeah, it didn't work.
And I don't even know if it's roguelike, because I mean, all the environments like look exactly the same.
Well, that's fair, yeah. But the fact of losing a lot of progress was never enjoyable in that game.
Yeah, and that's not for dying. That's for winning, which was even weirder.
Yeah, well, they have whatever they call them, seasons or episodes or whatever, and each one's kind of its own contained thing. And I mean, that did wear on me over time because you're always starting from scratch each episode.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you die, and they're like hour-plus long missions, and if you die, you start the whole thing over.
Yeah, and that's actually what happened with me with Galak-Z is I was getting near the end of a long mission, and then I died, and then it's like you have to restart, and I'm like, nope, never playing again.
Wasn't that game like also missing a whole chapter when it came out?
Yeah, I think that's out now.
Okay.
Yeah, when I played it, I was lucky to avoid that, but I could definitely see how it would be even more insufferable for that game. Because, the load times weren't good, like the feel wasn't good, the missions were all very long and samey, like it had a bit of story, but it just never went anywhere. Like it never really fell apart, but it also just never really delivered or hooked, like from what I could tell.
Yeah, it was always weird to me that the progression for each season was basically the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't need to jump into it too much. I did finish Outland, but I actually kind of felt the same way about that game, which it's more of an action platformer with some combat. But I don't need to get into that, but it ended up just... after about halfway through, I was like, I really should just stop playing this.
Outland's freaking awesome.
Yeah, I liked Outland. I don't remember a lot about it, but I remember liking it.
So, anyway, I won't dive into that. The other couple games I wanted to mention are I played Phantom Dust and Etherlords 2, and I guess maybe the best way to present this is a bit of a contrast because those games are kind of weird and dated and clunky. but
Indeed.
with like the fact that they had kind of an interesting deck building mechanic, and they had like some combat that like it was far from perfect, but it was just kind of fun enough that it did something interesting that like kind of hooked me enough to play like a lot more of those games. So it was kind of funny because I was kind of chewing on it, and I was like, what do I not like about a game like Galak-Z? And it's like, I mean, I can name some things specifically, but for me, it's just like, a game in this genre, this very actiony genre, just needs to have like something going for it. So anyway, that's tough to quantify, but those are kind of my two little groups of games.
All right. Yeah. And, it's always interesting whenever we come back from a big break. It's like, how do you really talk about some of this stuff? But I think that was a pretty good way to do it. So did you have anything else that you want to talk about, Ryan?
I could go on and on, but I want to make sure everybody else has time.
All right. So let's see. Nate, what you been doing? What you been doing all that time away from school?
Yeah, I mean, I played a fair amount of stuff. I played a lot to just try to get to our Game of the Year discussion. But since then, I've played, probably the main things that I've played that I can talk about are Getting Over It, SteamWorld Dig 2, Absolver, and Until Dawn. So I'll just pick a couple of those. Absolver is an interesting one. It was a 2017 game that I didn't quite get to. I don't think anybody else has played it, but are you guys familiar with what that game is?
I'm familiar with the very basics of it, but
right. It's a
3D
fighter. Well, I don't know. I haven't really played For Honor. It's not quite as deathmatchy as that, I don't think, but it is a 3D fighting game, and you have a character that levels up. It has a stat system and equipment and sort of a world feel and style to it that's not super far from something like a Dark Souls. But it's primarily a multiplayer game. I'm pretty sure like the actual single player content is not very long. It's just kind of learning the basics of the game, fight a few boss fights with enemies, simple enemies in between. But it's just a very like robust 3D fighting system where you learn new martial arts moves by fighting other opponents, whether they're computer-controlled opponents or human opponents, and like blocking and dodging and parrying their attacks. So if they do an attack and you block it or dodge it, then you start to learn that move. And then you can build out your custom kit of moves from all the moves you've learned.
That sounds neat.
And you're constantly switching between stances, and you customize what stances have what moves and start to try to chain them together in ways that make sense. And it seems cool. I've played like 3 hours of it, and I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing.
That was actually I was teasing a little bit about For Honor, but I did kind of want to just suss out like how you felt about Absolver, because I remember when I saw like a preview of it at maybe like a Video Games Award or something like that. My first thought was, oh, that looks kind of cool, but then like that subconscious part of my brain that's like, okay, this looks like, some kind of 3D open world, like fighting game, wannabe. I don't want to be insulting or derogatory, but when I think about how hard it is to tune like a good fighting game, and then you try to make that an open world, and then you look at games that have come out like, like maybe Chivalry or For Honor. Like I think people kind of like Chivalry, but For Honor I think was just considered like terrible. So I was wondering, I was really, really skeptical about a game like Absolver that it could do well, because you have all this, you have this like very complicated fighting set in like a full 360, and it's just hard to do things like targeting and lock on and, proper counters and move balance and stuff. And I don't know if you've had time to suss out any of that, but it just seems to me like that game has so many risks.
Yeah.
like a fighting game. And how
Yeah, and I think it has somewhat of that like slightly open aspect and like small amount of single player content, but I think you kind of have to think of it as a fighting game first and foremost, and that's what that game is. Like they clearly built the whole game around this fighting system, and I think it's a good fighting system. Like I'm not really a fighting game person, but like I can see the depth there, and I can see like me starting to learn some little things here and there that are helpful as I face off against different opponents, and like I'll start to notice like, oh, he's going down low for like a leg sweep, I better jump over it, because you can basically use I'm playing with a controller. You can basically use the right thumbstick to dodge left, right, up, or down. So if you press up, you'll do a little hop, and you can jump over low attacks. So I'm like learning all these little tells and counters, and learning how to string together moves. And it's actually like most of that works pretty well. Like I think the core of the combat is good. The thing that I'm struggling to understand as well as I want to is like the stat system and which moves to put in what orders in your custom build out. Like that's the stuff that I haven't quite nailed down yet.
Okay.
But I think the fighting system
the
is really
customization part of it.
Yeah. They have like custom combo.
They have custom
stuff,
combo
right?
stuff and equipment that has different stats on it, and your character stats increase as you level up, and like all that stuff. I just I'm like, I don't know. I guess I want a high score here, maybe.
Yeah, is there loot? So there's a loot.
There is loot. Yep.
All right. 2017, y'all.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so I could see. Yeah, I was like sitting here trying to think like,
get it right.
Then like what? Because like when you were describing it as a fighting game, it's like I'm not sure what's very complicated about this, but now I'm sitting here thinking like, oh yeah, like once you start like customizing all sorts of that stuff and dealing with loot, like then you start having to think about the balance of your fighting moves and all of that stuff and adjusting things there, and that does start to sound like really hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah, like think about if in Street Fighter, instead of there being a roster of characters, everyone was Ryu, but you could equip anybody's moves for any like directional attack or any special that you wanted to.
Yeah.
That's like what we're
Yeah, that's like, because I mean fighting games are, if they're well made and stuff, like they can already be very deep, and this just sounds like a whole nother layer.
Yeah, but like you'll just be randomly wandering around the world. Like I've been trying to find all the bosses, which probably my main complaint about the game so far is that I just can't find my objectives ever.
Are the worlds procedurally generated, or are they static?
No, it's static. Okay. And it's not big. I just can't find my objectives for some reason.
Okay.
And then
exploration. Is it a Metroidvania as well as a 3D open world fighting game?
No, it's really just not complicated. I think I'm just dumb. I literally cannot find where the boss is.
It doesn't have like the Dark Souls style players drop in kind of thing?
So it has players drop in, drop out kind of stuff, and you can just spar with them if you want, or you can go and do like matchmaking duels with people, and that's like best 3 out of 5 rounds kind of thing. So like it has all that stuff working for it too. That seems to work pretty well. Like there's a surprising number of people wandering around those worlds. That will either jump in to help you while you are fighting 3 AI enemies at once, or like wait for you to be at a quarter health and then just run up and smoke you for no good reason.
Didn't they have that system in Dark Souls?
Yeah.
Sort of the similar thing.
Yep.
So you have like a mild panic attack when you see someone you're not sure if they're a friend or an enemy.
Yeah, but also dying just doesn't really matter in this game. So. And
if they're naked or in their underwear, you know they're going to kill you.
Yeah, you know they're a crazy person.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's kind of how I've been feeling about Absolver. It's neat. I don't know how deep into it I'll get, but it's pretty neat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like fun.
I guess is there any preference between SteamWorld Dig 2 and Until Dawn? Does anybody want to hear about any one of those over the other?
I'd like to hear about SteamWorld Dig 2.
All right. You dig in this game. You're a robot.
Dig with Steam?
You use Steam, sometimes.
All right.
And you keep digging, and then you find another checkpoint, and then you take all the treasure you found while you were digging and you sell it, and then you buy more digging tools.
Mm-hmm. And the numbers go up.
Oh, I'm very interested. Please continue.
It's like a super simple concept. Most of the world is like, well, not most, but like a large pathway through the world is you can break through it and like carve your own tunnels and explore and find treasure and fight enemies. And like that core loop is very simple but works. And that's the same basic loop that the first game had too, but they've refined it, I think, in this one. A lot more upgrades, a lot more like little challenge areas that I like a good bit.
Yeah.
It is sort of more of the same.
Yeah, it is.
Polish.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a bigger, better SteamWorld Dig.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the thing. So I also played through. Did you finish it, Nate?
I haven't finished it, but I think I'm like right at the end.
I've finished it a few days ago, and the thing that, like, in some ways it's very simple, and there were parts of it where I thought it was maybe kind of dull.
Yeah.
But it's also just, like, supremely polished.
Yeah, it really is. Like, it's almost too smooth.
Yeah. That's what I was about to say.
Like, it really is just kind of like, I'm just going through the motions, and I think I'm enjoying this.
Yeah, it's almost like someone made this really just, like, fancy drink or something, but it's so smooth it just like slides down so fast you can't even taste it. It's like they have like shined over every possible rough edge. Like, it is like, this game feels like they looked at like general video game conventions and just executed that as smoothly as they could.
Yeah, it doesn't have a ton of personality, even though like you can see parts where they try to inject some personality, but it's still just kind of blah. Most of the upgrades are fine, other than I think the hookshot is super fun.
Yeah, the hookshot was
around
fun.
with.
That is one thing they do pretty well, I think, is there are a few parts, at least for me, where I'd get an upgrade and I'd be like, oh, this is a huge ramp up.
Yeah.
So they would have those times where it's like when you get the hookshot's one of them, it's like, oh, I can just
go anywhere now.
Yeah, I can do anything.
Yeah.
And then later you get
all the places.
Yeah, and then later you get something that's even bigger than that allows you to get around even more. So they do have those jumps, which that's always exciting.
Yeah.
I remember liking the first game, but in moving to a sequel, like I kind of felt like I had enough of the first game. And in moving to a sequel, I almost wonder if they would have benefited from some more like sandboxy or roguelike type thing where the goal is more to like, to reach a certain amount of progress or to build something up with kind of, a less linear, predictable. Because I think if I remember the original game correctly, like, you're exploring it, so you don't know what's going on, but it's pretty well gated and things are pretty well fixed, right? There's not like any randomness. So the stuff you're finding, somebody has basically designed into the game. And once you get kind of past the halfway points and you see the gates and stuff, you kind of see what's happening. But that kind of core gameplay loop, could be fun in like a more unstructured, semi-random format, I think. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that. That'd be like a completely different game, so it's hard to say. But
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think Nate kind of hit on it. Is for me, I feel like it needed some kind of personality or something to it.
Yeah, a little bit more personality, or just to take that concept a little further or something would definitely help. But I mean, it's not a bad time by any means. It's generally good fun.
Yeah, I had fun playing it. I'm curious what they do next, because I really liked SteamWorld Heist a lot better than Dig.
I still need to play that. And
I was like, when Dig 2 came out, everyone was like, oh, this is a better Dig. And I think it is. But it also just made me kind of think like, man, I would have rather had SteamWorld Heist 2.
Yeah.
Or have them do a completely new thing. Like just
something else.
Keep trying different stuff within the SteamWorld universe, but keep being different gameplay styles. Point being, SteamWorld Heist is good.
That is a good video game. All right. Well, I know you had played some other stuff, Mr. Nate, but
yeah, I mean, Until Dawn. Basically, my one sentence pitch on that is it's an interactive slasher movie, and I'll finish it sometime soon.
I really, it's funny you just started playing that because I was thinking like 2 or 3 days ago, I was like making a short list of games to play next, and that was on it. So
yeah, I have it. If you don't already own it,
I do already. I got it in the PSN sale.
Okay.
All right. Well, then we will look forward to hearing about that one in 2 weeks on the next ATACS. But Mr. Will, why don't you take us into a time warp? Let's go back a little bit. I know you've been playing some older stuff that you wanted to talk about. So what you been doing?
Your mic is muted, sir.
All right.
Or maybe he's not with us.
So you can handle that in edit.
Will has vanished.
So, Mr. Flex, what's been going on in Raleigh?
Oh, he is here, actually.
Oh, hello.
Sorry. Sorry, he's zoned. I just came back from my time warp. Yeah, so I guess you can still handle that in edit, maybe. So Flex and I had this kind of idea. And he may disown it, but the idea was perhaps that I would do the top 10 games of 2016 in 2017. Okay, and so the idea here was I'll just start and we'll just kind of see how this goes, and maybe this will be not particularly a good use of our time, but I thought it would be interesting. All right.
I'm excited.
Here we go.
So, honorable mentions of 2016 for me were Deus Ex: Mankind Divided, That Dragon Cancer, Titanfall 2, Party Hard, the High Crimes DLC, and Quantum Break. So those were the top 5 that were the closest to making my top 10.
Titanfall 2 was 2016. Man, I lost track of time.
Yeah,
it
dude.
was.
Wow.
So, then my top 10, number 10, Watch Dogs 2. Okay. Number 9 is a game called System Crash. And I might take a second to talk about System Crash just because that's one I haven't mentioned on here. And it's one that I played in the past 3 weeks. So it is a cyberpunk deck building game. And so basically, it's got this sort of like text written story where you're kind of doing traditionally cyberpunky stuff. So you've got some runners and you're sending them to either go sabotage something at a pharmaceutical company, get some sort of, futurist tech. You might be trying to figure out how to get some guy like a new cutting edge arm that's mechanical or something, or there's some corrupt police officers. It's kind of gritty. There's some different kinds of tribes. There's like a Yakuza, because it seems like a lot of these cyberpunk games kind of have like a little Japanese flavor to them. They're these kind of anarchy guys, who are very, very dangerous, kind of like skis balls. But basically, every time you beat a match, you get either like a new card or cards or some credits. You can take those cards or credits to the black market to kind of reinforce parts of your deck that you want. Like you can get an additional copy of a card to maybe help it out. It's actually a pretty great time. So it really pulled me in. And I spent a lot of time kind of creating a couple decks that I could use to sort of handle a lot of the enemies. For this to really basically be like a one-man project, there's like a lot of variability in terms of what decks you create, and a couple of different times where you really need to kind of go back to the drawing board to come up with a new strategy to handle a certain part.
Right.
But anyone who likes card games, who can handle a little bit, maybe a little bit lackluster cyberpunk story, might really get into that.
Okay, that sounds sweet.
Number 8 is Event Zero, which I actually just finished last night.
Nice.
And that was pretty cool. Now I can't say that it like really hooked me up with like a lot of like I won't say that it like gave me any like grand epiphanies like some of the other games on this list. I felt did a lot better in terms of just like impacting me in terms of the way I see the world. But I do think it's extremely well done. You know, so one of the things I mentioned about this one is that, you know, when someone says, well, it's a game about talking to an AI, I'm like, well, let me just see how they mess this up. But it actually does.
Yeah.
I think it actually does a pretty good job, especially with what the story it's actually trying to tell.
Okay.
So I really enjoyed that. 7, killing time at light speed. And I'll give you a quick premise here. Basically, the idea is that you are in a spaceship flying away from Earth and you're browsing social media. And you actually, every time you read through your feed and you refresh it, the time between the last time you had access to it and now gets further because you're going further and further away from the planet. So at first, you know, you might respond to someone's post, and then the next time you actually are able to get a version of the site, it might, you know, maybe a week or two has passed. But by the end of the game, it's like months have passed between, and maybe even years between when you actually liked a post or commented. And then, of course, there's a news ticker as well. So you kind of watch yourself, in a sense, get more and more, I don't know, out of touch with people and what's happened. And to me, it really was amazing in terms of the kind of emotions, because I think we've all had these sort of times in our lives, like where, you know, maybe when you're in college and you have a certain group of friends and you talk to them in a certain way, and then you move on and your life becomes different and those relationships become different. And some of them you hang on to and some of them fall away. And I think this game does a really good job of evoking that emotion in a unique way. So that's that. Number 6, Deadbolt. Number 5, SteamWorld Heist. Number 4, Grim Dawn. Number 3, Orwell. Number 2, Super Hot.
Oh yeah.
And number 1, Pony Island.
All right.
So those are William's top 10.
I have to make a technical correction here.
Yes.
Strap in, everybody.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
2016 Game of the Year.
SteamWorld Heist came out in 2015.
Did it?
It totally did.
Oh no. Did I goof it up? Did I goof it up?
All right, bump it off. What's
you
your
can
new
still
number?
put it on your list. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna tell you how to run your list.
I don't know. On the Steam page, it says June 7th, 2016.
Well, like,
so
I guess it depends on how you count releases because it came out on Steam in 2016.
But
it came out
on Steam.
Yeah, its original release came out in 2015 though on 3DS and maybe.
So I guess I was going by these Steam release dates.
Yeah.
I guess I was.
I mean, that's cool. It can be your Steam top 10 2016.
There we go.
No,
we can find a way to make this work.
Yeah,
you know,
it's your list, man. You do what you want.
All right. So, but that was really all I had to talk about. I just wanted to kind of hit you guys with that Lester-Rooney. And,
yeah, man.
And so, there was other crap I played, but what's up, Flex?
Oh, the one question I was going to was not sure where to interject here.
Yeah.
But, so you were talking about with Stories Untold, like kind of, you know, the adventure game-ness of it.
Right.
Did you hit any of that in Event Zero?
I did, but it didn't necessarily, like, there were times where I felt like maybe I wasn't typing in the exact thing that it wanted me to type in or asking the exact questions that it wanted to ask. But I guess for one way or the other, I kind of took it as the AI kind of being evasive. And so I just kind of played it as though those responses were canon. Like if he didn't answer my question, I was like, well, okay, maybe there's a reason he's not answering this, you know?
Yeah.
And so I guess and so I feel like the way that story is told and the actual story it's trying to tell allows for a little bit of flexibility in the fact that perhaps he doesn't have responses for everything that you're going to say, but it's kind of, I think in some ways it's kind of covered by the structure of the game.
Yeah, I think it is kind of neat with that, with Event Zero in particular, because it does have like all the same problems that you would find in an adventure game like that, but it does make up for it in a weird way because of the way it presents the scenario to you and like the way you interact with the game, it's almost like you're playing a role-playing game. And so like, I don't know, for me, and it sounds like probably for Will too, I just got into the mindset of like, well, I'm going to try to talk to this computer, but it might not understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And so it's almost like you can sort of excuse the fact that he might not pick up on something you're saying by saying, well, maybe the AI just didn't know how to handle that, as opposed to normally you might say, stupid developer couldn't even account for me saying this. You know what I mean? Or something like that.
It's so, like a weird get around for like the shortcomings of the game.
Yeah, so it like still worked for me regardless of those moments. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Will?
Yeah, I've talked about a lot of those games on ATACS before.
Yeah, that's true. All right.
Super Hot's great.
Super Hot's a fun game.
Super
Hot. Mr. Flex, what's been happening in Raleigh?
Well, Paul, I've finally done it.
What have you done?
I have played everything.
All right, and so once you get done talking about this, thank you for joining an ATACS for the last year.
You have finished the internet.
Yeah, so everything that is a video game. For our international audience.
Is it a video game?
Well,
what is game?
We are not having that conversation on this podcast.
Yeah, so to be clear, everything is the name of a video game, which I'm sure when they came up with that name, they had to figure people would make all sorts of jokes about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a weird one. I think it's random what you start as, but like I started as some kind of horse, and you can walk around.
All right.
You can herd up with other horses when you're a horse. You can sing. You can dance. You can make new horses. And then you can become anything else. So
sounds like a third-person cover-based shooter. Then.
Yep, you got it.
All right.
Gears of War 5. But then
Anya, I'm a horse.
Well, like,
come on.
How do you change? Like, I mean,
you hold down left trigger to descend or right trigger to ascend.
Okay.
And descend has become a smaller thing. Ascend has become a bigger thing. And if I'm a horse, I can ascend and become a tree. And then as a tree,
trees
once
are
again,
better than horses.
They are larger.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And when you're a tree, for example, you can still herd up. You can make new trees. You can sing. You can dance. You can do all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then you can get smaller. You can go be a blade of grass. You could be a wood splinter. You can be some kind of amoeba. You can be a particle. And then it loops back around. If you go down too far, then you cycle, you go all the way back to the top again, and you're like a solar system.
I was going to say, so you're just space, huh? Okay.
Yep, and then you can dance or sing while you're a solar system, make new solar systems. And yeah, you just, I don't know, man, you just do your thing.
So this sounds like, so is there an objective? Is there an end? Or is it more just like exploration kind of thing?
Is there an objective to life, man? I don't know.
All right, so this definitely sounds like a game that you want to have the drugs to play.
So what happened is he played Bent Foddy, and now it's just a downhill spiral into these meta games.
Oh, shots fired. Welcome to ATACS. In this corner.
It is interesting. I mean, getting over it does have an objective. I don't know. I've actually been very curious if there is an ending to everything. So there is a series of like audio. They're basically audio logs. It's by this philosopher whose name I forget.
Alan Watts.
Yes, there you go. Thank you, Will. And yeah, he's just going on about all these theories of the universe and everything. And I mean, there's got to be a finite number of those. So I don't know if you get through those and there's an end. They also did give me an objective to go to this thing where I don't know where it is. Like, so when I started the game, there was like this golden arch, and I couldn't do anything with it. And then, like, as I went, they eventually said, like, hey, go back to that golden arch. You can now ascend into that arch. And I'm like, gosh, I don't know where that was. I'm like a billion planets away by now. Like, I've like jumped through time and space at this point. Like, I don't know.
Well, I don't see a speed run for everything on YouTube. So.
Yeah, I was assuming there was no ending. That it's a very meditative experience. And I have become like kind of zen while playing it.
Okay.
And it's kind of neat actually. Like I'm kind of into it. It's also got an autoplay feature, which is hilarious. And you can like set all of these sliders for what you want it to do. So you can like set how frequently they will ascend or descend. In other words, become different things. And you can sometimes talk to other objects and get their thoughts, which is hilarious to like get the thoughts of a rock.
Okay.
And the writing's actually pretty funny too. But yeah, it's like I was like doing some chores around my apartment earlier today, and I just had it running on autoplay. And like every time I'd look over, and it'd be like in a very different spot, and I would just sit there and watch, and it's just like it's kind of mesmerizing. It's crazy. And like the autoplay will also trigger the audio stuff too. So like I would just all of a sudden hear Alan Watts just start talking and spewing his philosophy, and I'm like, all right, that's kind of cool. Yeah, it's a neat thing.
Okay. Yeah.
You just chill out, bro.
I'm seeing a distinct lack of numbers. That's the only problem I think I have with this game.
Yeah, not much in the way of numbers.
That's okay.
And it's also hilarious how things move in that game. Nothing animates. So, like, if you're a horse or a cow, so like I shared a screenshot of a cow on its face. But so like the way animals move is they don't animate, so they just like blockily roll forward.
Oh, so that okay.
Yeah, so like that was just like mid movement is where that screenshot came from. That's just how everything moves.
I thought that's how cows traveled. They just rolled on their faces.
Well, that's how everything travels in everything.
That's kind of funny.
There's also, if you're like obsessed with collecting things, every time you become something, it's like you are now, or it's like you are cow, and like it adds that to your catalog. So like if you want to try and become everything. That's a collectathon's nightmare.
If you had to write like an artist statement for this game, like what is the metaphor? What would you say it is?
Oh, geez. I guess the one line thing would be like, we're all the same. So like
that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, it's like everything is
deep.
Yeah, everything is connected and everything is the same and everything like we're all one.
Mm-hmm.
Given that there's like, I don't know, microbes and trumpets and a cow on its face, that's kind of a deep message.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a moment where I was just bouncing around between things and listening to the audio clips, and like it just kind of, you just let it wash over you, man. Just become one with everything.
Yeah, I need weed to be legal in Georgia to play this game.
That's great.
It's cool though. I like it.
All right. So what else have you been wanting to talk about?
I did finish SteamWorld Dig 2, which we already talked about. I could talk about the other games I've played. We could talk about our Dream Daddy or Prey, both of which I finished. Or if we want to move on, we can do that too. I'm whatevs.
Yeah. So I guess I am curious about your thoughts on Prey. As a fellow bathroom scrounger. Have you? So, did you enjoy it?
Overall, yes. I have a number of gripes with it, which we got into some over on our Game of the Year podcast.
It's one of the 10 best games of 2017.
There aren't enough bathrooms? Is that what you're saying?
Not one of the 10 best games 2017, and there probably are enough bathrooms. Well...
It's on the list.
We have a spoiler cast if we want to argue more about, or we're hoping to have a spoiler cast.
Yeah.
If we want to argue more about Prey.
My main complaint is a common complaint I had with games in the past year or so, let's say, is I think it's too long for what it's trying to do.
Yeah, I think that is fair.
Because I went on a whirlwind with that game yesterday. I actually didn't play any games for like a week and a half, and then the past few days I've gone on a tear, and that included playing a whole lot of Prey yesterday. And in probably 8+ hours of play, I did not encounter a single new enemy type.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like, I feel like a lot of that game is like they have their loop that it does, and I feel like for like the variety in that game and in that loop, it just goes on too long.
Okay.
And I said something similar on a Game of the Year is it's like that game's a lot longer than like your BioShocks or your System Shock, and I don't even think it's as varied as those. So it just, I feel like it could have tightened things up a lot and with the balance, because like, but it's also got a weird pacing to it, because at the beginning of the game, like I thought the game got way easier as it went.
Yeah.
Like by the end, but at the beginning of the game, I was like avoiding very basic enemies just because I had like no way to deal with them.
Yeah.
And then I put a bunch of points into shotgun and combat stuff. By the end of the game, I was basically playing it like Doom, just like running and jumping and shotgunning everything, and everything died really fast. Which is crazy. So like it like went from being frustrating to kind of boring, if that makes sense. It like It never felt like it hit the right balance it needed to hit. But yeah, I mean, overall, I liked it with some gripes. I think there's a really neat core in there, because I think, as Nate talked about on the Game of the Year, that I think the space station is really well designed.
Yeah.
And I really like the idea that you like boil down all the stuff you're scrounging into raw materials that you can make into anything.
Yeah, the recycler is great.
Yeah. Like, I think there are some good ideas in there. Something about the whole balance and pacing of it just never felt right. It feels like it needs a lot more, like, they have the pieces, they just didn't put them together quite right.
Gotcha.
That's kind of my overall stance. The last few hours of it, I was like, this game just won't end. They kept sending me like back and forth across the station to like collect something else, and I'm like, I just don't need to do this anymore. But anyway,
okay,
that's kind of the quick pitch. We probably will do a spoiler cast on that, probably.
Yeah, so viewers, stay tuned for that, where we can talk a little more specifically about some of the things that happened in that game and where that game goes.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to drill into as well, because I think I agree, and maybe some of the other panelists agree, that Prey had some cool things going on, but then there were times it just felt like it didn't quite click.
Right.
Indeed.
All right, so Steph, you're up next. You've been playing things. What things have you been playing?
So I have been playing a lot of Life is Feudal Forest Village. I've put an embarrassingly like big amount of time into Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. And I've been playing PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, but a game that I want to talk about real quick is Rusty Lake Paradise.
Okay.
So I was clicking around on Steam. I actually played this last night, and I definitely judge a book by its cover really heavily when it comes to games and their little buttons to click on. And the logo for this game and the button is beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's so gorgeous. So I clicked on it and I bought it and I played it, and I don't know why, but I finished it in one sitting. It was like 3 to 4 hours long. I don't know what I played. I don't know why I played it. I kind of felt like I was held hostage the whole time, but I kind of enjoyed it. I don't know.
Okay.
So Rusty Lake Paradise, it's a game by an indie game studio called Rusty Lake, and they've described themselves as like wanting to be the Twin Peaks of gaming. So they really want to do some weird stuff. And they've released a couple of more of these Rusty Lake games and Cube Escape games. But in this one, like, you're this guy named Jacob, and you go to this island called Paradise Island, because your mom died. And apparently the island is cursed by the 10 plagues that made Egypt a bad time to live in. And you go around and you're trying to recover pieces of your mom's memories. and you're solving all these puzzles to get rid of the plagues, and you keep doing all these really creepy ass rituals with your family. Grandma kind of pops up. I don't know if anyone else has played Resident Evil, but how like grandma just pops up in places.
I don't think any of us have played Resident Evil.
Resident Evil 7 in particular.
I'm kidding.
Okay. There's a grandma that just like pops up everywhere, and there's a grandma in this one that just creeps me the hell out. It's a point and click, quote unquote adventure game. It's one of those like, let me go milk the cow so I can get the key to unlock the tree, to shine the light at the statue head and put it on number 3, and now I win.
Yeah, what is it like? Gabriel Knight, the famous like hit the cat with the rock puzzle or something.
You know what? That would be really freaking game. There's a lot of killing animals. There's a lot of killing animals. There's popping boils on your uncle.
Oof.
And fixing him because he's infected with some kind of disease, and you rip his heart out.
Oh God.
So I'm hearing point and click adventure with some weirdness, and I start thinking Oxenfree, but then what you're describing just sounds really terrible. I don't know. Would you say it's like an artistic game, or like a horror shock value game, or like just really bad?
It's kind of artsy in the fact that the backgrounds were hand painted, I believe, and they're very beautiful, like little pieces of art. And then the characters themselves look like a Flash game.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely gross. It's more gross than scary. And I don't know why, but I just kept, because you would get through a plague, and you would start the next story with a new plague, and I kept playing, I guess just because I was wondering what kind of messed up stuff they were going to make me do next. You know, there was some bathroom diving, so you pray fans. You know, there was some poking through some toilets. That was a thing.
That sounds like no fun.
Yeah, you turn someone into a fly monster, and they rip out the hearts of bunny rabbits. That's a thing.
Oh God.
Yeah. Actually, I did find like about 60% of the puzzles to be very satisfying. I really like some of the puzzles in the game. Especially at the end, there's a lot of stuff about like zodiac symbols and that kind of lore that you have to kind of figure out to advance. And then some of them are just like really bad Simon Says puzzles where you are pushing in cow udders to like a Simon Says game, and it's really weird. I don't think I'll ever play another Rusty Lake game, but at the same time, my search history is what is up with Rusty Lake, so I don't know. Maybe I will play more of them. I have no clue. It was a good time.
This whole thing is making me very upset.
Look, the logo is really cool. Like, that's what I got for you. Like, look at that thing. And like for our viewers, you'll see it on our screen. Like, look at that. That's such a cool logo.
That is a cool logo.
It's kind of terrifying.
Like, why wouldn't you want to play that? But you don't.
Because of everything you just said.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think you just made a good case for why I'm never going to pick that up.
Okay, to be fair though, the game is only like $4.
Yeah.
So
I don't think that redeems it. I think I can find a lot of less horrible things to do with my time.
There's a lot more pleasant
and my money to be for that matter.
Yeah,
I could go. I can go buy a milkshake for $4 right now.
It
sounds like a much better time.
Hours. Will it scar you and give you nightmares? I had some messed up nightmares.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's like a train wreck. You can't look away, man.
That's funny.
But on the complete opposite side, and I know that some other people here can talk about this game, I finally jumped into PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds.
Yeah.
I have not
Murder Island.
Murder Island.
I have not gotten into a shooter game like multiplayer like this since Halo 3, and I put some hours into Halo 3. I was kind of a multiplayer, like, just obsessed addict freak. And this is pretty addictive. It's pretty addictive, even though I'm really bad at it. But when I do pair up with people who are really, kind of fun, like it's the best time. And A lot of the panel members here, we've been playing, and a lot of not winning chicken dinners, but there's a lot of laughter and a lot of off-roading. That's a good
Steph,
time.
we got to number 5 that one time.
We did get to number 5, and Paul died in 2 seconds.
That was a bad time.
So a show, I don't know. Do we know anybody who's actually good at PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds? I still have yet to meet somebody who's
personally no, but
yeah,
there are good players at it out there.
Yeah. You'll meet them if you play.
I subscribe to the Discord that Stone Mountain 64 has, and I play squad with a lot of guys in there, and those guys that are good are like 500 hours plus in that game.
Yeah.
Like
it really is a time played investment to get really good at that game.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to do that.
Compounded by there's no like real way to practice at that game. Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff, like the map is huge. Knowing your way around the map helps. Like there's a wide variety of items to get used to, like just the strategies to get used to. Like there's a lot going on in that game, which I kind of like that it's that intricate. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like Steph was kind of alluding to this. My biggest enjoyment in that game so far has just been hanging out with cool people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
definitely. If I was playing to try to win, I would hate this game. The shooting is awful. I really hate the shooting. The graphics aren't as great as everyone's like freaking out about. Like, not that great looking of a game.
Oh no,
no!
I don't know that anyone's ever thought it looked great.
I've heard some people be like, "This is the epitome of graphics." It's like,
no, it's not. It's terrible.
Really
yeah, it is not that.
I just like doing stupid stuff, man.
Yeah,
I like the game.
Yeah, to me, the fun of that game is just like gathering up our squad and like moving out on Murder Island and just getting up to goofy shenanigans, and it's I don't know, it produces like fun moments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and my thing, like the biggest criticism that I have is something that we've already kind of talked about. Is like I want a game mode that is just like a really small map that you can just get in there with guns. You just start with guns with just a few people, just to practice the shooting. Something similar to like Call of Duty, because that's my biggest issue with the game right now. Is like you say, it's really hard to practice with anything, and that's kind of what I want to do. Is I just kind of want to get in there and just have some good old fashioned shooting matches that don't take forever to get into.
But I was actually thinking about that after the last time we played, and I was like, I wonder if they put like there's something pure about there just being that one mode in the game that everyone plays that like I think helps them get numbers in that game, because like if you think about the fact that you need 100 people in every match, and then if you had these other modes where people could practice stuff more quickly, it's possible those could become the more popular modes and people would just play that instead.
Right.
So there's probably something to say for them just sticking to their guns and be like, no, like this is how PUBG is played and that's what we're going to do.
But that really sucks when like the only time I get to practice shooting is 2 seconds I pick up a gun, scream because there's a guy behind me, and I shoot at the barn. Like,
yeah.
I would love to have some way to practice, but I think there's also I could see the argument why they do it the way they do it.
Yeah, and I think I buy that. Like I think that part of what makes the game is that you don't have a million different modes. I just know what I need to do to get better, and the game makes it very hard for me to do that thing. And that's just kind of where my frustration comes from. It's like, I just need to get in here with these guns and just shoot at people, and I can't really do that with the way it's set up.
We need to get spicy.
I found this game the other day. I was just like looking through Steam releases, and it's called Battle Royale Trainer.
Oh, wow.
I think I heard about that.
Yeah. And it doesn't seem to have reviewed very well, but it's only like $4. And if you guys want to practice on something other than a barn, maybe Battle Royale Trainer is for you.
Oh, wow. I am looking at this on Steam right now, and what is this?
Well, I will say one more thing for PlayerUnknown is, or I guess PUBG is the way to talk about it, is I feel like it has a much like better driving mechanic in the game than it does shooting, because I could drive around in those vehicles all day long. Like,
yeah. We had a fun anecdote here. It was Paul, Steph, and me, and a random pickup player as a squad of 4. And I forget what happened to you two, but somehow I ended up in a truck driving our pickup player in the back of the truck. And we were driving, and I heard him say, "My driver is terrible." And then I heard someone else, it was one of you two, said, "Watch out, there's someone behind you." And I was like, well, there's also another truck with another squad in front of me. So I was like sandwiched between 2 squads. And then a third squad like pulled up right beside us, and like 4 people just popped their heads out of this truck and started shooting at us. I'm like, I just gotta go, man.
Yeah, he was bandaging up, and like you kept going.
He wanted me to stop to bandage, and then I was like, nope, gotta go.
That's kind of the appeal of the game, is like these weird memories that you make like with your friends, like playing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that means that the game is actually good, or if I just have really cool friends.
Well, you can kind of say that about a lot of co-op games, but I think, or multiplayer games. But I think the design of that game, like the way that world is so big, and there's so much like the way the drops are spread out, and the way the circle constricts. Like, I think a lot of the smart stuff about the design of that game does make it really prone to create those moments and memories.
Yeah.
They do. They just need to fix the hacking stuff, like region lock it or something, but that's
the hacking
a complaint for another time.
Yeah. Totally agree with that.
Overall, a lot of fun, and I got to get 30 hours $1 per hour. Entertainment value.
Yep. Yeah, so that's been a lot of fun. Steph, did you want to talk about anything else before we moved on?
No, I've taken up enough time. I'll talk about how awesome Yu-Gi-Oh is later.
All right. So I've been doing a lot of PUBG. I've actually been doing a decent amount of Shin Megami Tensei 4 on 3DS. But actually, I think the thing that I want to start off with is a game that Steph and I have both been playing. It's called Life is Feudal Forest Village. This is basically a Banished, but with more bells, more whistles, and a lot more resources to manage.
A lot harder, too.
It's a lot harder, and I think what ended up happening is someone, like the developer for this game, played Banished and went, I like this. I want to make it, just turn all the sliders up to 11, and then just put that out there and go. So it has terraforming, where you can reshape the land. It's got a whole lot more buildings, a whole lot more stuff to do. This is definitely, like, if you're not a fan of Banished, you're not going to like Life is Feudal. But as someone who really enjoys watching numbers go up and down and things like that, I've been having a decent amount of fun with it. A couple of criticisms for me is that it's not in early access, but it feels early access. They're still releasing updates relatively regularly. It's about every 2 to 3 months, and they're still doing things like their latest patch notes have it where they were able to significantly reduce the memory needed for the application. It's like, there was some efficiency stuff that they did on the back end programming, and that's the kind of stuff where it's like, okay, they're still putting a lot of work into this game. It's fun, but it doesn't have the same level of polish, I think, that Banished did. Whenever Banished first came out, but it's a city builder, village builder, resource simulator thing, and I've been having a lot of fun with it.
Question. So does it have? So one of my gripes with Banished was I kind of liked it, but it also is a pure sandbox game. So even though it kind of harkens back to those, maybe 1990s sim games like Roller Coaster Tycoon or, Lords of the Realm or whatever. Those games had like mission maps or maybe campaigns. And it's funny because back then when I had a lot of time, I preferred the sandbox modes. SimCity is another good example.
Yeah.
But now that I have less time, I found myself jumping into Banished, playing one map to get my feet wet, another map to kind of go, a little bit more of the distance. And then it's like, okay, like there's really nothing else here for me. Like, but if it had a campaign, maybe I could do like half the campaign and feel like I got more mileage out of it. Does Life is Feudal have anything like that?
Not at all.
No, and in fact, I would even go so far to say that Life is Feudal is even less directed than Banished is. Banished at least had like a little intro to where it's like, you know, you're building a village. Where this one just says start game. Like, and that's like all it is. And then you start the game, and then you've got people, and there are these houses, and you just go. I mean, like,
and there's a bear, and it's going to eat your people.
Yeah. So no, like, there's nothing like that. And I would say that this game, I mean, pretty much you have to go and like read some guides unless you have played something like a Banished before, because it really just dumps you in, and it's like, all right, go.
Yeah, if I had not played Banished beforehand, I would not get this game at all. But I do think that while it doesn't, I agree with you. I think that having some kind of like end goal would be nice, something to tell me I clicked the right button. But one thing that I think that this game does better is I feel like there's more of a reason for me to keep playing. With Banished, I would get up to a lot of people. I would map out all the resources are, you know, gone, and I'm just mining, and then that's about it. Like, I've covered the whole map, and now I'm done, and now everyone's dead because everything's gone. But with this game, there's a lot more like, you can build a castle, and now you can build all the accessories that a royal family would have. And I feel like there's more to aspire to do, but there's not really a good reason to do it.
Right.
You know? But I still love the game. I love being a benevolent or an awful god and ruling over my people with an iron fist.
Yeah, it's pretty fun, but yeah, I think it's not something that I would really recommend unless you're pretty deep into the genre already. And sort of the other thing that I wanted to touch on real quick is I've been playing a decent amount of No Man's Sky still, and I feel like that I have gotten into this a really good loop with that game. And just to reiterate some of my earlier comments on the podcast, like, they've done a good job. I think that at this particular point, I've hit some story beats that I'm actually interested to see where it goes from a narrative point of view. I found a couple of side quests that they're like mysteries basically, and as I'm solving the mysteries, it's sort of leading me around the galaxy in a way that it kind of wasn't when I first started, and it just, I wasn't expecting to get like a story hook, and now I've got a story hook, and I'm like, man, I want to know what happened to this guy, you know, and now apparently, you know, like, I'm an explorer, but that has like a meaning, not just with the word explorer, like, you know, like they've actually told me in the game now, it's like, you know, you didn't have any memory, but you have this drive to explore, and that's like unique and weird. And here's this other guy that has the same thing. So it's starting to fill in character backstory in a way that I wasn't expecting at all. So yeah, it's just been a pretty good time. And I just like to pop in every so often and say, this game was bad, they made it better. I think if you, I think if you've waited a year and you've thought about playing it, you certainly can jump in and not be disappointed by now.
Yeah, I might have to load it back up and try it again, because I liked it when it first came out, but I burned out on it.
The very first time, Paul, you talked about it, that game on ATACS was like, I don't know, a 10-minute rant. It was something. So it's interesting hearing you come fully around on that game.
Yeah, and
kudos for sticking with it. I am impressed.
Well, it was also one of those things where I don't know the exact timeline. I feel like that when I played the game and got on ATACS and just was like screaming at the microphone, they released a major update either the next week or the week after. It was something like that. And that's sort of got me a little bit more into it, because they changed the way some of the resources spawn and how some of the systems work, just like made it a little bit easier to play. And now it's kind of gotten to the point to where it's like, whoa, I found a quest and it's actually leading me somewhere. that's insane. So yeah, it's definitely in my recommend pile. So if you do want to go and load it back up, if you've played it before, you probably just want to start a new character unless you're really attached to your old one.
Nope.
Yep. So you just start a new game and just start going. Yep. They've really turned up the slider on plutonium, which you need to get your ship like in your ship and like off the planet. So it's pretty much negated the problem of like having to scour for resources to even like leave, right. which is kind of nice. They've made it a lot easier to explore, I feel like. So, cool. But that's all that I wanted to talk about. And boy, we have been talking for a while. A lot of video games that we've played recently.
We probably only talked about half the ones we actually played.
That's certainly true. I could say words about a couple of other ones, but we're just going to save that, and we will see where we go in the next couple of weeks. But I do kind of want to go around real quick and just see what you folks have that you're either wanting to start or wanting to finish here in the next couple of weeks. And Will, we're going to start with you. What are you planning on trying to play here the next couple of weeks between now and the next episode?
Well, I had to get a new controller for it, but The Evil Within 2 is probably the next thing on my list.
Okay.
Wait, a new controller?
Yeah, like there's some really dangerous enemies that you kind of have to run away from if you like don't come up on them the right way. And my controller, like when I clicked in the stick to run, like nothing would happen. He would like run for like a half second, and then I would get like whacked in the back of the head.
I thought you were going to tell me of like some crazy like specialized custom fit controller or something you got.
No.
It's the survival horror controller.
Yeah, the
there you go.
Yeah, I mean basically, Evil Within is you need to be able to run game. And I couldn't run, so now I can, and I'm going to do it.
All right.
Hopefully your next session goes better than that video you posted.
Yeah, hopefully.
Man, that's pretty funny. Flex, what about you? What do you have coming up on your 2 playlist?
Yeah, I'm still cleaning up 2017 games. I just finished Dig 2 and Prey and that stuff. I think Resident Evil 7 and Life is Strange Before the Storm, I think it's called, are probably the next things I'm going to hit. Then probably dive in some backlog stuff, but yet to be determined there.
Okay. Steph, what about you? What are you going to play for the next couple weeks?
I'm going to keep going with SPACEPLAN. Probably going to play some more PUBG. And I'm eyeballing a game called A Healer Only Twice. I think I'll try that out.
Okay. Mr. Ryan, what about you?
Yeah, I'm also in the kind of uncertain backlog cleanup step. Like my previous list of games kind of was all over the spectrum. I've got a pretty decent backlog of. I'm probably going to be targeting some more short and medium length games, but I don't know exactly. It kind of changes on a whim. So
okay. It's perfectly fine. Nate, what you got?
Yeah, it's looking like it's going to be a good time for backlog because there's not a lot of new stuff coming out. So I'm going to finish up SteamWorld Dig and Until Dawn and play some more Absolver, and then probably Resident Evil 7.
Okay. As far as for me, I think I'm gonna keep on playing the PUBG thing. That's been a lot of fun, and hopefully get a bit deeper into Shin Megami Tensei 4 for 3DS, and probably grab a few Power Moons in Mario from time to time too. I'm still kind of picking that up and playing it every so often. So
jump that rope.
Not doing that one though. That's okay. We'd like to thank you for tuning in and listening to Adults Talking About Cool Stuff. This has been ATACS episode number 29, and we will be back in your feed in about 2 weeks to talk about more cool stuff and more video games. Thanks for listening. We will see you then.